Hello everyone, and welcome to my review for Record of Ragnarok Episode 4. In this episode, we got the end of Thor vs. Lubu, and it was pretty good, based on what we've gotten in the show so far. There were some things I liked, there were some things I wasn't a huge fan of, and I'll get into those in detail. For starters, the animation in this episode was pretty good for the most part. I liked the build-up to the clash between Thor's hammer and Sky Eater. Some of the actual animation, it was a little weird. You had the messy speed lines, but they weren't moving. Like when Lubu was charging in to try and bite Thor, his teeth were all like messy. Like there was movement, but it wasn't moving, so it was kind of weird. But when you had everything getting all crazy before Sky Eater and Thor's hammer clash, that was all pretty good. Lubu's original use of Sky Eater was pretty well done as well. Overall, animation, fairly consistent, about on the same level that it was around in the last episode. The directing also was pretty good for the most part. A lot of the stuff that happened was pretty shot for shot from the manga. I know some people don't really like this that much because, the anime should be adapting it, changing it for a different type of medium. Whereas if it's exactly the same as the manga, you could just read the manga. There were some moments like that. I thought some of the moments with the audience were not as good as they could have been. Maybe could have been done a little better, a little smoother. Maybe move them along a little faster. I felt like some of the audience reactions took up a bit more time than they probably should have. But I feel like the directing overall was pretty decent. For the voice acting, pretty good. Thor, I really liked a lot of Thor's moments in this episode, especially as he's talking to Mjolnir, talking to Lubu. It's all generally really good stuff. I know Thor is my favorite part of Round 1. As many of you may or may not know, Round 1 is my least favorite round, but I still like it. I still think it's pretty decent. And Thor, in my opinion, is the best part of it, not just because of his car-sized hammer, but because a lot of Thor's dialogue and interactions with Lubu, and Mjolnir actually, are pretty good. And whoever this guy was that they got to voice him does a pretty good job. It's pretty much exactly what I wanted out of Thor when it came to an anime adaptation, in terms of his voice acting. So I'm pretty pleased with that. And Lubu had some pretty good stuff as well. This was when we got Lubu's childhood flashback, when he saw that tree get destroyed by lightning. And I thought the VA did a pretty good job conveying the emotion in that as well. Now, there was one thing that really was not hitting for me this episode with the voice acting, or I guess more so the sound design. So as Lubu and Thor were clashing, they had this distortion for their voices because everything was getting all crazy. And I'm like, yeah, you can do distortion, but it sounded like they were yelling into a fan, and then that audio was being put through like a fucking cheese grater. Did not sound good. Kind of took me out of the moment a little. Which, when something's getting real good, when something's getting real fucking hype, it is not good when something takes you out of the moment. For example, I really like the Jujutsu Kaisen anime. A lot of people really like the Jujutsu Kaisen anime. And episode 13 has some problems for me. Is it episode 13? I think. I'm pretty sure episode 13. When it's the end of the Mahito arc, we've gone through the whole domain expansion thing, and I'm like, holy shit, this is amazing. This is an absolutely fantastic episode. And then you get into like that minute-long sequence where apparently it's 2D animation, but they animated it in such a way that it ended up looking 3D, and Mahito was just like fucking... He was flailing around like an NPC from a PS2 game, and I was just like, what the fuck is going on? Just totally took me out of the moment when I was super feeling the episode. So that audio there was kind of like that for me. It was just like, what is this? Not good. Not very good. That was my only major gripe. So far, that's been my only major gripe with, like, any of the voice acting or audio so far. For the most part, it's pretty good, but just that was kind of, like, ugh. Now, the OST. As each episode goes on, I feel like the soundtrack gets more and more prominent. As I mentioned in the first episode, there wasn't really anything notable about the soundtrack. There was no moment where it kind of like rose and overtook the scene and really helped, improve the impact of it. Until we got to the end of episode 2, and then episode 3 had some really good OSTs, and we have some really good OSTs in this episode too. Mostly for Lubu. Lubu, I guess this would be like Lubu's theme, like sort of the somber Chinese music. It's really good, really helped accentuate the emotional impact of when Lubu's on the ground and his legs are broken, and he's struggling to get back up with the red hair. And then I think it played again, like right before he got his head blown off, and was thinking about how he finally found true joy. I thought the OST was pretty good. I've seen a lot of people, as much as I've seen people bitch and moan way beyond what they should about this anime, there seems to be consistent enjoyment of this OST, a lot of appreciation for it, and I'd say so far, yeah, it's pretty solid. So if it keeps getting better as the season goes on, I think some of the moments that I'm most excited for, that I haven't already been spoiled on being bad, will be pretty good. They'll be hitting in the right way, so I'm looking forward to that. Overall, for this fight, I think it was pretty decently adapted. As Griever brought up in his review for, I think, episode 3, this fight is really not, like, super crazy in the manga. It's literally just Thor and Lubu swinging their big weapons at each other, and then big impact happening. And that was pretty much what they did. This fight probably required, like, the least fancy animation to get a pretty accurate adaptation. For other fights, I don't know. But for this fight, I think it was pretty adequately adapted. I don't hate it. It doesn't... It's not something where I'm gonna, like, wake up in a cold sweat, like, oh my god, the animation in Lubu versus Thor. It's like, no. It was alright. It was pretty decent. As the anime goes on, as I see more people bitching and moaning, saying this is worse than Escanor versus Meliodas, my expectations are lowered, maybe my standards are lowered, but I keep finding myself enjoying it more and more as I go on. Once again, I feel like way too many people were expecting to get, like, Demon Slayer movie quality animation from a third-party studio, adapting a not super famous, fairly new series, that didn't even have a English publication in the West until, like, yesterday. So I think some people just really had fairly unrealistic expectations. I mean, yeah, listen. If we got Demon Slayer animation out of this, I don't know what the fuck I would do. Like, you guys know how much I love Record of Ragnarok. I would fucking kill for an anime with that kind of production quality for Record of Ragnarok. Would I trade this anime for that? Fuck yeah, I would. But what we got is not an atrocity. It's pretty alright. Now, we'll see if my opinion changes as I get to stuff in the future. I'm already aware of some things. Fortunately, the fight that everyone is complaining about is not one that I particularly care about. I'm an anomaly in that sense. My greater concern is the fight that comes after it, and I haven't really heard any complaining about that one, so I'm going to assume that one's fine, so we'll see what happens when I get there. But with that, that's all I have to say for my review for Record of Ragnarok Episode 4. If you enjoyed, please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and click that notification bell so you don't miss any of my uploads. I do Record of Ragnarok chapter reviews every month, and I'm going to be doing a few of these episode reviews every day until I finish the anime. We'll probably be done by Monday at this rate, assuming I don't get busy doing other stuff. If you enjoy other series such as Jujutsu Kaisen and Kengan Omega, I do videos in those series as well, so you should check out my channel if you're interested. You should also go and subscribe to my backup channel since I have 2 strikes on this one. You should definitely just go and subscribe to that if you don't want to lose me in case I get a third. If you enjoy discussing Record of Ragnarok with other people, or you just enjoy the content I produce on this channel, I highly suggest you check out my Discord server. I have a link to that down in the description. And since it's the end of the video, it's time to give a shout out to my wonderful patrons, Archbear CJ2K, Fuse, Neo, Dijon Redden, Anthony Chavez, Honey Mustard, Zach Rowitz, K-God, Chris Redfield, Strash23, Moonshadow935, Rat, and Ryzen4K. Thank you all very much for supporting me on Patreon. I greatly appreciate it. And if you too want to get shoutouts at the end of videos, or access to reviews for solo leveling and the Boxer, you can always become a patron as well. There's a link to my Patreon down in the description. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys around. Take care.